I want to wrap up the first book to
Yeah.
get on to the next book, but any other major pieces here that we need to cover in the subtle arts?
Well, we all die, but you know.
Yeah, and that's interesting because this is what I found fascinating, because Mark mentions death at the end of this book, and then it opens up the everything is fucked with death,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
First of all, no one's talking about death much, and so I
Yeah.
think it's really refreshing that you're talking about it. Actually, we had a guy on named Stephen Jenkins who's got a book called Die Wise, who spent, I think, 10 years in palliative care, and I think he literally watched like 2,000 or 3,000 people die.
Wow.
And he was here to just totally dice and chop up any concept I had of what death was. I kept saying, oh, my relationship with death, and he was just like, would you just stop saying that? It's death. It's death. And then there's a great book called The Denial of Death and
Yes.
all of that stuff. So talk to me about how this great Subtle Art of Not Getting to Fuck, everyone's happy kind of book with you gets into this death, and then you open up this book with death. So tell me about the human relationship with death and how it plays into everything else that's going on.
I think it's, first of all, it's one of the only things that we will all experience, you know, so it's crazy that it's not discussed more. I think it's also probably the only thing that we're all afraid of. You know, it's just one of the most universal human experiences. And so I think it's impossible to not, I think that demands that it be talked about. Secondly, I think when we come back to talking about this value, what is valuable, what is a meaningful life? I don't think you can properly address that question without imagining death, without imagining what it would be like to not be alive. Like, there's a lot of popular articles and stuff that have gone viral about, you know, deathbed regrets and on the deathbed and all this stuff. Yeah. And I think the reason that resonates so much is because it's only by thinking about that situation of like, oh crap, if I'm on my deathbed and I think about what I'm doing today, how would I feel about that? You know, like that gives a sense of clarity about our decisions that is often hard to achieve, you know, just in the thinking about it in the present moment. So in terms of just being a self-development tool, I thought it was incredibly powerful. The other thing about death, it's been incredibly powerful in my life. I've had a number of family members and peers die. I had one of my classmates when I was in high school got cancer. And so as 14-year-olds, we watched this kid just like disintegrate in front of us. And then I talk about in the book, when I was 19, I had a friend drown at a party. And that's actually one of the most powerful experiences of my life. And so I always thought it was strange that, because people would ask me, they said, what was your big aha moment? You know, what was the big, and I was like, well, my big aha moment was I watched my friend drown, and then I spent the next 6 months being like, wow, I'm wasting my life. You know, like that was my aha moment. Like it's there's something, but there was something like so clarifying about it. So that's why it made it in the subtle art. The reason I opened up with it in Everything's Fucked is two reasons. One is Everything is Fucked, a book about hope, is essentially about how do we generate a sense of meaning in our lives? Why do we find certain things meaningful and not other things? And so death is the logical starting point for that, is this recognition of our own mortality, and like, I need to do something that feels important so that when I die, I feel good about it. Or not feel good about it, but it's like, I don't have regrets, I don't, you know, whatever. So I needed to start at that point for that reason. The other reason I wanted to start there is again a perspective thing. I think one of the problems that I talk about in the new book is that so much of our culture right now is catastrophizing small things, you know. So it's like Trump tweeted this, and you know, it's like 2 million people lose their fucking minds. Boris Johnson did this. Like, 2 million people lose their mind. You know, it's like, okay, guys, I get that you can disagree with them. They can even be bad people, whatever. But like, let's chill out and keep perspective of what's really going on. And so I wanted to open the book with kind of the darkest, most hopeless scene that I could. So it opens with a Holocaust story, and then it goes into a discussion of kind of the meaninglessness of any individual human life in the scope of the universe. You know, so it was just a very dark and bleak opening of like, okay, so this is reality, you know? Let's get off Twitter. Like, this is reality. This is what we're all dealing with here. And let's build brick by brick. Let's build something out of that.